What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. And so in today's video, we are going to be building a very simple app with AppGyver, and we're going to be using a very cool tool for modeling our future app. And this is a recommended way in order to build an app before you actually have real data. And so this way you're solving the problem of this chicken and egg problem where you want to build an app, but you don't have users yet, you don't have usage, it's not actively being used by anybody yet. And this way you can get some sample data so that once you have the users, everything is going to be working perfectly. And so we're going to be using AppGyver in order to do this correctly. But before we do that, I want to show you how this tool works, okay? And so this tool is called Mock.API.io, and this is actually a free tool. They have a generous free plan. If you scroll down, you are entitled to a free 1 project and 4 resources per project. And this is a great way in order to get started. Now, this may seem a little complicated, and maybe you're a little bit confused looking at it, but I assure you, all of this is very simple and easy to grasp. And so all you have to do is create a simple account. It's going to be a free account. And once you do that, you're going to be on the screen as I have here. Now, I created 1 project here, and that's the only thing that I did. And this project has an API endpoint. Now, it also has extensive documentation. If you click on this, you're going to be at this nice documentation. But I assure you, this is very simple to get started and to get going with it. Okay, and so here we are on the main page here. And what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is we are going to be building a simple travel app in AppGyver. It's going to be a very simple app, but I'm going to show you how you can hit the ground running, and then later on you could make it as complex as you want. And so here we are on this page. What you want to do is you want to click on new resource, and we're going to create our first resource. And the idea of this travel app, it's going to be very simple. We're just going to have a users resource, and that users resource is going to have another resource tied to it called countries. So basically, it's going to be users and the countries that they have visited or they want to visit. You know, maybe they're setting up an itinerary or a wish list or anything like that. And they basically need a list of countries that are attached to each user. So we're going to create a first users resource here, okay? And so take a look at these fields. We have an ID, which is the object ID. We're going to leave that as it is. Created at is faker.js. And if you scroll down here, you have access to a lot of data that's part of this library called faker.js. And we're going to leave it exactly where it is, right? Because created at is using this date recent. It's going to just create a random date that's fairly recent in relationship to your current date. So we're going to leave that. Name is also faker.js, which is the full name. You can just set it to first name, last name, which is going to leave it at full name. And then we also have an avatar, which is an avatar. We're going to delete avatar just to keep things simple. And that's all we have. Now, what we need to do is we need to create another field. And this field is going to be the country field. But before we do that, we need to create a new resource. And I'm going to show you how to do that in addition to this resource. So if you take a look at this one, we just created this resource. Now, it's not populated with data yet. Nothing is there yet. All you have to do is drag this. As you can see, if you're dragging, you're going to see the number of records that it's going to create, these fake records. So we're going to create 50 records. I'm going to click that. You're going to see data generated. And now if you click on data, you have 50 records. And so the great thing about this tool is that you have these names and they actually seem realistic, okay? They actually look realistic, meaning that you can build an app and you can use these fake names in order to get started. Now we have 50 records here. And we also have an API. So if I highlight these users and I open in a new tab, I will see a response here from this API. We have an API endpoint. We have a server set up here. And so as you can see, if I open up this endpoint, this user's endpoint, we actually have a result. We have a JSON response that's already ready for us in order to get started. So if you want to set it up to maybe to, let's say, 5, 6 users, or maybe you want to do 5, nice round number, if you can refresh this, you're going to see you only have 5 records now, which is great because now you have an API that's working with some fake data. So later on, when you actually build an app, you can replace this endpoint with your real endpoint. This is great for modeling, for testing, for just creating an app very, very quickly, which is kind of what we want. So the next resource I'm going to create is a country resource, and this is going to be a list of countries where the person wants to visit, or they have visited, or they have itineraries or something like that. So we're going to click on new resource. I'm going to call it countries, always making it plural. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to change this to country, and I'm going to go to this pull down. We are going to go to the address and pick a country, okay? And I can create it right now. So if I create it, I have another resource. I'm going to hit, let's say 5, and then I go to data, and I should have 5 records, and we have different countries all created. These are real countries, right? We have Iran, Ghana, Micronesia. These are absolutely real countries. What we want to do is we want to create a relationship because we want to tie countries to users. We don't want countries by themselves. We only want it to be as a child component of users. So the way you want to do that is you want to click on this thing here and you want to drag it to users. So once we drag it, it comes under it. Okay, now all we need to do is refresh it, click 5, and now it's actually tied together. So once you created this relationship, you want to go back to edit for users, and you want to add a new field, and this is going to be country here. And if you scroll down, you see a child resource, okay, and it automatically selects countries. We're going to hit update, and now we have a relationship. So if you go on to users here, you open it up, you're going to see countries as part of it, right? So if you take a look, it's a little bit harder to see because it's not formatted. But if you take a look at this one, this is the first record here, ID1 created, name, and now you have a country which links to this other resource. But if you go to countries by themselves, you're just going to see countries, but you also have the user ID as the parent resource. So if you click on data, actually, if you click on edit, you're going to see we have user ID as the parent ID, ID as the object's ID, this current object's ID. But if you go to users and you click on edit, we see that it has ID is the current object ID and the country is the child resource. And this is great because now we actually have a resource, right? So if I go back to my API and let's say I do user 1, I have that first record and I have the country built in. So it knows it. So there's the random name. The country is Mexico. If I go to the second user, here's the country, Bermuda, right? I have the name and the Bermuda. If I go to the third user, I have the name and I have Antigua and Barbuda, which is another Caribbean country. Let's say I go to the fourth one, we have Falkland Islands. We have Isabella Corona and we have Falkland Islands. So if I go to the fifth one, Abraham Schuster, Netherlands, Antilles. So there's a lot of Caribbean countries here in this example. And now we have a fully functional JSON API with fake data. So if I click users, everything is there already created and ready to go. So now I can go to AppGyver and I can start building the sample app. Now this is going to be a very, very simple app. But once you learn how to set it up, once you learn how to build a simple app, it's going to be fairly trivial to build a more complex app. You don't really have to do a lot of things. You just have to add new functionality once I show you the foundation. Okay, so here I am in AppGyver. We're going to create a new project and a new app by clicking this. I'm just going to call it App 1 or actually Travel. I'm just going to call it Travel. We're going to hit Create. Just use the defaults. It's creating this new app right here. And now it's telling us that the app has been successfully created. So the first thing that you need to do once you've created the app is you need to build the foundation. You need to set up the data sources and all that stuff that comes with it. So you need to click on this data this data option in the main menu, and you want to add a data source. We're going to be adding a REST API direct integration. Resource ID, you can just call it whatever you want. You can call it API, since we only have one API here. Description API, and then the resource URL is going to be this one, right? It's the one that, this app has given us. So we're going to copy this. We're going to go here, and now we have the resource URL here, okay? Now we need to set up these individual requests. We have the get request for the collection, for each individual record, create record, update record, delete record. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm only going to set up these two, but it's pretty much the same thing to set up all of the other ones as well. It's the same process. So we're going to go into get collection. We're going to go in here, and we're going to leave this on default. We're going to leave everything on default, so we can just do a test here. We're going to click on run test, and we're going to see, and we have a status okay, and that's a good thing because now we've gotten the data back, and this is a get collection, which means it gets all the records, okay? It doesn't get a specific record, it gets all the records. And this is perfect. So now we got our 5 records back. And as you can see, it's nicely formatted here, right? We have the user record, and then we have a country here, right? This is an array, but in this example, there's only one country, and each country is different for each user. Now, what you want to do next is click on this set schema from response. You want to do that. And now it's set up, it created the schema for us, which is very, very important because this allows us to use these data fields once we are actually going out and building this app. So you want to hit save because it doesn't save it automatically. And now we have get collection saved. You want to click on get record and do the same thing. The default is fine because it sets up an ID as a parameter. And this ID is a URL placeholder, which is absolutely fine. We're going to go into test, but we need an ID. So I'm just going to put 1 as an ID. We're going to run test, and we should get that first user, which is Arnold Schlerin. Arnold Schlerin, country of Mexico. Okay, status is okay. We're going to set schema from response. We're going to hit save. And now we have these 2 type of requests all set up and ready to go. So once we've done that, now we can go back to our data here, and we can set up the variables, right? So you want to go into, so you're going to be on this page here. It's not going to be on the main menu. You just need to toggle this setting here. You're going to be in variables. Next, you're going to go to data variables, and you're going to add a data variables. We're going to add API, and we're going to add 2 data variables, right? We have a collection here, which is this collection right here, and we're going to call it collection. We're going to hit save. And then we're also going to add a single record, right? We're going to add a new data variable API, and this is going to be a single record. It needs an ID, but this ID is going to be inserted inside the app once we have this app. So we're just going to put something like single, and this is going to be required, which is fine. It's going to be set up later. We're going to hit save. Okay, now we have 2 data variables that we can start to use inside the app. Now we're going to go back into view. And what I want to do is I want to build a very, very simple app. The first page, we're going to have a couple of pages. This first page is going to display a list of users. And then once you click on the individual user, it's going to go to the second page where it's going to show more specific data about the user, maybe their country, maybe some other information about them. In this case, we only have the name, and so we're going to display the name. But if you want to make it more complicated, add more fields, you will be able to display those fields on the second page as well. And so we have a sample page here. We have a headline, and we have some paragraph text. So this headline, let's make it the user. Let's make it the name of the user. Actually, let's do this. Let's create a list. So we're going to delete this, and let's create a list of users on this page. Very, very simple. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to set this to repeat, and we are going to go to data and variables. We're going to pick a data variables, and we're going to pick collection, right? We're going to pick collection, and we're going to hit save. Once you do that, you see how it's all set up, how it shows multiple of them, but this is a little faded. That means it's displaying a collection. The next thing you want to do is you want to click on content and you want to click on property of data item in repeat. We're going to click on this, current, and we're going to choose name because that is the only fields we have. You know, the next step is obviously to create more fields, make it a little bit more data rich. But in this case, we just have the name. And when we also have the preview here as well, we're going to hit save and we are going to hit save. Now, if we run this app, it should send that request for the collection, which means it's going to be a request that looks something like this just for users automatically. And it's going to actually display all the users. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into launch. We are going to go into open app preview portal. And we're going to actually run this app to see if it's working. You always want to be testing as you're going along to make sure you're not making any mistakes. So I'm going to hit open. And I'm going to see what happens. So there you go. This is empty page. That's fine. And we have a list of 5 of our users, which in this case is all the users, all the records. Because if you go back to our Mock.API, we created 5 users and 5 countries. And that is exactly what we want. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Okay, so this looks good. We're going to close this. We're going to go back to the app. And now we're going to start building the second page. So in order to do that, we have this empty page. Once you click on this empty page, you're going to see a bunch of pages. So you can hit on this empty page. You can change the title here of this page. You can do anything that you want here. And we're going to hit this and we're going to add a new page and we're going to create a detail page. Okay, I'm just going to call it detail page. You can call it travel itinerary, anything that you want. It doesn't really matter in this case. So we're going to go to detail page. And on this detail page, we want to actually display the information about the user, the country they're in, some other data if we have. In this case, we're only going to be displaying their name here. And we're also going to be displaying their country here. Now, the way this is going to be working is that once they click on this, we are going to be passing the user ID to the next page. And then on that page, we can make another request and get all the data that we need. Okay, so for instance, the first record is user ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. Now, the way you do it when it comes to AppGyver is that you have to go to the page that will be receiving this specific page parameter. So if we're going to go to the detail page, you're going to go into variables and you're going to go into page parameters. As you can see, if you hover over, it says here, read-only argument values passed when navigating to a page. This is exactly what we need. You're going to hit go to page parameters and you're going to add a parameter. And the parameter we're going to be adding is the user ID because that's the value we're going to be passing. User ID, this is going to be a numeric text. Here, we're going to hit save. And now this page knows that it's on the receiving end of a parameter, of a page parameter. And now we can go to our initial page, this list view, and we can create a logic that allows it to go from the list view to the detail view. And you want to do that by highlighting this, and you can go all the way down and you can expand this. This is the logic steps here. And the event here is the component tab, which means if somebody clicks on this, what happens next? And what we want to do is we want to open the page. Okay, we want to open the page. We want to connect the two. And if you hit an open page, automatically it knows this is the detail page. This is going to be false, which is the default. And as you can see, detail page, it knows that there's a user ID parameter that it needs to pass. So now, before we can actually access the data, render the correct data here, you need to go into the variables tab and you need to define the data that we're going to be using on this page. So this is done on a page-by-page basis. We're going to go into data variables and we're going to add a new data variable. It's going to be API. And we're going to be doing a single request. Okay, this is going to be filled in automatically by the page parameter that we're getting from the initial page. We're going to hit save here. And now we are going to go back to our view. And we're going to go in here. We're going to go into content. We're going to go to data, data variable, API. And now we can actually get, it says select data variable field. We're going to choose name, okay, and it says here name. And now we can actually get the correct data that we want. Now, once you are setting up the actual data for this page, you need to make sure that the ID here is going to be bound to this data variable of the page parameter that we're getting. Because otherwise, you're not going to get the right data. We're going to hit save. And now this page knows that it needs to get the specific record for the page parameter that we are passing of the user ID. We're going to hit save, and now we can start rendering the actual data on the page, the easy part. Remember, there's the business logic, there's the data layer, and then there's also the application layer. Right now, we've configured the data layer. Now it knows which data to get, which data to show. Now we need to configure the actual UI here, right? This application layer, the top layer here. And so we're going to click on this, and we're going to go in here, and we're going to tie this to a data variable. This is going to be a data variable API. It's going to be name, and we're going to hit save. And here is going to be the country, right? We can even do repeat if we want. We can actually do repeat. So let's say we want to do repeat data variable API, and we can do country. Because if you remember, country is actually an array. Country is an array. We're going to hit save. And now we have the username, and we have a list of countries. In this case, it's only going to be one country, but it could be multiple as well, okay? Don't forget to set up the content as well. So property item in repeat, current, it's going to be country here. We're going to hit save. Okay, so we're repeating with this, and we are showing the country here. We're going to hit save, and we are going to try this app out. So we are going to go into launch, open preview here. We're going to open our app, started at the beginning. So we're going to hit on this. And as you can see, it shows it correctly. Let's go back. We're going to go in here and name and their country. If they had multiple countries, it would show multiple countries. Isabella, Falkland Islands. Abraham is... There's Abraham, Netherlands, Antilles, and Arnold is Mexico, if I remember. And we can double check. We can go back to our API. We can do users one. This is Arnold. Country is Mexico. You see, there's only one country, but it's an array. Country is actually an array. You see that angled bracket here and an angled bracket? That means it's an array. In this case, we only have one record, but we can have multiple records as easily, and we can create one or many records. It doesn't matter. So we can choose two. The second record is Azra Hamel. Country is Bermuda. The third record is Emilia Emmerich. Countries is Antigua and Barbuda. Let's try that out. This should be Bermuda, and this should be Emilia, Antigua, and Barbuda. And so all of this is getting, all of these requests, everything that's being rendered, it's getting from our sample Mock.API the same way that I'm executing the request manually, which makes it really, really easy to test things out. Now, obviously, in production, you're not going to be using this data. This is only for testing because you're going to have your own system. Maybe you're going to have a third-party system. Doesn't really matter. But that's the beauty of this, is that we're not really concerning ourselves with the whole implementation of things. We are only concerning ourselves with the AppGyver part. Is AppGyver working correctly? Is AppGyver getting the data? Is the right data being shown? When I click on it, is the right data being shown? Later on, we can replace the data and the app will still work with the new data. And so, like I said before, you can show more data. You can create more business logic. AppGyver makes it super, super easy. Because all you have to do is you can go in here, you have the app, you have the detail page here, and so if you have more data, you can drag and drop. Let's say you want to drag and drop maybe another paragraph here, and you can make it repeat. Maybe it has more items, maybe it has cities or zip codes or something else. You can repeat it, or maybe you have another, apart from full name, maybe you have their middle name or something else, or their country of birth or city of birth, or their payment, whether it was credit card or something else. You can display it here. by going into content data variables, you're going to go into data variable, you're going to go in here, and you're going to choose the things that you can choose. So we're already using name. You can even put an ID here, right? Their user ID. So I'm going to put ID. I'm going to hit save. And now we're going to be seeing another field of ID. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go and launch my app. I'm going to refresh it. And now we have a brand new app. So take a look at this one. We're going to go to the empty page. We're going to click, and we're seeing a new field, this ID, and it's going to be different for each user. So for instance, this has 1, Isabella is 4, and this should be 5. And later on, you can add more fields. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want. But the bottom line is that using this Mock.API tool, we were able to build an app that works and does what we needed to do fairly quickly and easily without going into details about building our own REST JSON API from scratch. All right, guys, so this is all I wanted to show you in this video. Really hope you enjoyed it. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'm going to be making more of this video. Leave a comment below to let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I will try to get to them in the next video. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.